Welcome to our latest video in the Adapting to Cultural Style series. Today we'd like to talk about two different styles that you may have heard about before, but not recognize the impact that it had on your workplace. These two styles can impact how we make decisions, give feedback, and approach teamwork. On a cultural continuum, we talk about them as the orientation towards individualism or collectivism. So let's look at a small case. In this case, two emails, part of a series that were causing bad feelings between colleagues in Beijing and colleagues in Copenhagen. The first email is one coming from Copenhagen to the Beijing team members. Let's take a look. Dear Mr. Lee, I would like to know how the new coding project is going. Can you tell me, when will you have achieved the first project milestone? I haven't heard anything from you yet, and I look forward to your feedback. Additionally, can you tell me about the other members of your team? Has Sally contacted the vendor partner in Beijing yet? If so, what will she do next? Also, has Charles finished the time logs yet? Regards, Hans. The email coming back from Mr. Lee to Hans is a little bit different. So listen, and without making any judgment, can you pick up on the difference between these two emails? How are they written differently? Mr. Lee writes, Dear Hans, how is the weather in Copenhagen? Our team is pleased to report the progress on our project. We have been working hard and the project will have hit the first milestone by next Monday. We heard back from the vendor partner 2 days ago and we will finish the agreement by the end of the week. Please find the time logs attached to this email. Feel free to share any feedback. Best regards, Lee. You may have noticed that in the case of Hans, he writes strongly in the singular. I, you, he, she, Sally, Charles, my, your, an emphasis on the individual. This is one way individualism as an orientation is expressed. You may also have noticed that Mr. Lee writes from a collective point of view, often emphasizing we will, we have, our team. This is an emphasis on collectivism. Now, when cultures clash, as it did in this case, Hans felt that Mr. Lee was not showing who was being responsible. It wasn't clear who was doing what. And for him, as an individualist, that was a big challenge for him. In the case of Mr. Lee, he felt that Hans was cold and inaccessible. Additionally, he felt he was pushing things on individuals when it was the whole group's responsibility. So as we said before, this is a big impact on how we approach our teamwork, right? If we're going to navigate this successfully as intercultural experts, we want to be thinking about, one, how we can listen in and use this information. In this case, we might recommend to Hans to be aware that Mr. Lee is focused on the whole picture. As a collective person, he's focusing on the whole team and their whole efforts. When he motivates the team, he motivates them as a team. So for Hans, his focus should be on the whole project in this case. In the case of Mr. Lee, if he's writing emails to Copenhagen-based colleagues, we would really want to emphasize that he's going to want to adapt to their individualist point of view and maybe emphasize a bit more about who's doing what as they're looking for that specificity in communication. A few other things to keep in mind if you're working with different styles is how we motivate people, to make sure we motivate based on individual or team needs, and when we're making decisions to count on whether or not each person needs to speak out in the case of an individualist team, or if the team needs to feel about a sense of consensus before decisions can be made forward. As always, enjoy the challenge of working in a cross-cultural team environment.